everybody, it's Pete at the RTO Show here. So glad that you're here with us. I wanted to take some time and let you guys know. We all know that we're feeling the collections crunch. It's right before tax time, and now is a good time to talk about it and see what we can do about it. And the reason that I have this guest on today is because he knows this better than most. So James Harvey's here. He's from Buddy's Home Furnishings, the Buddy's Mac Holdings division, the franchise, and he's all the way from Oklahoma. How you doing, James?
Doing great, Pete.
Listen, I don't think there's a person out there who isn't feeling a little bit of the crunch. I know there's some stores out there, there's some companies out there that are doing better than some, but I think most right now we're feeling it. 2024 started this, it didn't come on as I thought it would, right? So we're all
Right.
feeling that crunch. And I think this was a great time to talk about collections. I couldn't think of a better time to do it. Now, there's always the ins and outs. We got to worry about, does one law pertain to one state versus another? But I think the general overall view of how we tackle credit is how we tackle credit, right? And you've done a great job. You've come in. You've been a regional now for how long?
Since August. So what is that? Maybe 6 months, 5 months.
So you come in new to the regional situation, but you've been in rent-to-own for a long time. And you apply what you've learned and really turn that market around. Now you're at over 90% collected as far as rental revs for this particular time frame. We're talking about the end of last quarter or the beginning of this quarter, and I'm telling you, you're killing it. And what everybody wants to know is, how do you do that? So how is it that you do? I mean, what do you do when you first come across these things and you tackle it? You're like, I'm coming into a new region. I'm actually not just new to being in the region, but I'm actually new to being a regional. And you take them by the horns. What's really the first thing that you do? Like, do you look at the teams? Do you look at the files? Do you look at the calls? What is it you tackle at first and kind of rope it all in?
Well, with what I did is I got with the GMs in each store, and I tried to develop some type of relationship with them to let them know I'm there to help them. I'm not there to put in my way of doing things. I'm there to help them and, build a relationship with them that we win together. So it's important. It was important to me that they know that everything I ask of them or speak with them about changing certain processes was to help them get better. It wasn't to make things more difficult. Or to add any more stress than what they already were going through on a day-to-day business. It was to make it easier for them. And once I was able to get them to understand that I'm there to help them, and I'm going to be side by side working with them, actually helping them with their accounts, helping them with their store, it made a big difference to where they allowed me to, to kind of, they started responding. And they were willing to do the things that they weren't comfortable with. So it was basically just making a connection with them and letting them know that I'm with them, I'm helping them because I want them to be better, and we're in it together. That was basically the first approach, was just get them to understand that we're a team. So it's not me just telling them what I need them to do. It's me helping them achieve it.
Right. I think team building is going to be the biggest thing, right? The culture that we have inside the place, inside our four walls, inside our locations, only helps foster what we need them to do. But then you go in and you build those relationships. Where do you start at? I mean, so we build the relationships. We're talking to them. We get them to understand that we're all on one team. Where do you start finding the kinks in the armor as far as the credit belongs? Where is it that you first go to?
Usually, in pretty much every situation, it's upfront with the sales program. There's some kind of breakdown in the sales program that carries over into the credit. It's either bad order forms or not enough information for the credit team to work with when the customer goes past due and is not responding. So they're limited with who they can contact on references because it's just a bad order form. Sometimes it's agreements that are added on to customers that are already having a hard time making their payments, and we just made it worse because all we were interested in at the time was an extra sell. We weren't looking at the bigger picture on hey, we're overloading this customer and it's going to cause a problem down the road. So, usually from what my experience was, I noticed that most of the credit issues start with the sales program, just some kind of kinks in that armor with the sales process.
That's, I mean, that's true. That's where everything starts, right? In the sales
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you walk in, you're taking a look at the sales process. Now, is that kind of like that third eye, third ear? You're just kind of like listening to what somebody does at the counter and watching the way they build their order forms?
No, it's, when I first started with the stores, I went in, sat side by side with the credit team, started pulling files on customers that they had no contact with, or they were having a hard time getting them to return their phone calls. And I would look at the files and I'd see missing information, possibly where they only had two references, and both references were someone that wasn't closely related, so they didn't see them very often. Or it was, you look at the account and you see, like I said, they're overloaded. Why did we add on a living room set to a customer that already has 5 agreements that was already, past due the last 6 payments in a row? It just didn't make any sense. But, it was basically just pulling files and looking at each account as I'm sitting with the credit team and helping them call, together and showing them what to look at and what to identify. That's what you notice. And then, obviously when you can identify the sales issues, the breakdown, the kink in the armor on the sales, then you can start addressing that issue to kind of what they call stop the bleeding. If you
Yeah.
got an issue where you got credit problems, first solve the sales process, and then that right there will stop future issues, and then you can just kind of tackle it from there. But yeah, it's basically just looking at the accounts and pulling files, and you can just see it firsthand.
So I've seen this with you particularly, which really amazed me because a lot of people feel like when you attack the sales process, and we're not saying attack, but correct and get focused on, we start
Yeah.
saying, okay, guys, you can't just take any kind of order form, right? You have to look at how many accounts they have. You have to look at what they have. You have to look at the payment history as well, because it's great, right? It's great when you don't have a sale and you get that win. You get somebody on the phone, they say they want something, boom, you want to lock it down. But then
Right.
you got to really make that educated answer, right? You got to make that educated decision, like, is this a really good idea? And then on the sales side, what you're going to always hear is, well, you're going to slow down my sales. And we're not going to be able to sell as much, which means that we're not going to be able to grow. But then
Right.
what I've seen, especially in your region, is that you can put out maybe 25% less deliveries per week and still grow on that because the collections are tight,
In
right? I
most
mean, that's
situations, yes. Yeah, you're right. It's that chasing your tail, where if you have credit that is not in line, you're constantly having to return accounts to get it in line because you're having a hard time collecting on it. So you're doing extra returns, trying to hit a number, which we all know that's not the best way to solve an issue. But it
absolutely.
happens. They chase numbers. They do a lot of returns that are unnecessary, and to make up for it, they throw a lot of extra sales out to make up for the loss. So it's just a repeating, constant chasing your tail situation. So you really have to have the sales team buy in, also saying, hey, listen, this is gonna us doing this together is going to make it easier on you also. If you have quality sales, sales that you have less risk, you lower the risk on the sell. You have a higher chance of collecting on it, and you do not have to work as hard to try to get as many sales. You can concentrate on quality rather than quantity. So it's basically getting both departments to buy in and work together, because like you said, a lot of times they work against each other, right? You really got to get them to understand the overall goal is to be able to collect on what you rent, and everybody's stress level goes down because accounts are easier to collect on, sales are easier to grow because you don't have to put out as many sales because you have less charge-offs, less returns. It's basically a win-win if you get everybody to understand it and buy in together, which is kind of tricky, but that's the key, is just getting everyone to understand and work together on that.
So you said something that kind of struck me, right? You've got to get the sales invested. Are we, I mean, in your opinion, in rent to own as an industry, do we cause our own problems? Do we separate sales and credit a little bit too much? I've even did that. I just had a sales meeting, and you know what? I did have a couple of credit guys there, and it was nice to have everybody in the room. Is that an approach that you wanted, that you say you should probably take, is have the sales and the credit
Man,
maybe in the same credit meeting?
yes, I think that would be great because you're all working for the same goal to grow the store, to collect the revenue, grow the store. And one needs the other together on the same page. It's not two separate departments. It's actually one store, one goal. You just have everybody with different responsibilities to reach that goal, but they still have to work together. So yes, I mean, if you can get them all in the same meeting to understand how it all collaborates together, that is the best way to get everyone to understand that they're teammates. They're working together on this. It's not, well, I need to put out 30 sales, and the other team saying, well, I need to close at 8%. It's like, what are we going to do together to be able to collect a certain percentage of money and grow the store? So yeah,
So you
absolutely.
so you said you grab the files, right? You sit down with the credit team. Who do you really talk to first? Is it the credit team, or do we talk to management first? And when I say management, I'm talking about like the GM at that point
Right.
in time. Are we talking to the credit team first, or are we talking to management first? Like, what, the chicken or the egg, right? Who do we
Right.
talk to first?
Well, first, once you identify some of the issues, which like we discussed, then you get with I get with the GM, because you have to have the GM. The GM is the backbone of the store. They have to be able to hold the line. They have to be able to set the standards on and the expectations of their staff. So I get with them. I explain everything in detail of why we do certain things. You have to break it down to them. Like, this is the reason why we have this certain process. This is the reason why we need to do this specific task. Um, and once they understand, and you break it down and explain it to them detail for detail, they're more willing to buy in and commit to it. And once they do that, then it's just basically holding them responsible to the overall performance, because they're going to drive their team in the right direction. They're going to hold their staff accountable to that standard. Um, yeah, so first I would get with the GM and definitely get them to buy in, because if you get with with each individual member, staff member, the credit team, they can be doing things the right way, but who's in the store most of the time? The GM. If the GM is taking certain payments or certain commitments from customers that are not what was agreed to by the credit manager or the credit team, then you're working against each other. So you really have to get the GM to buy in first, and then hold the line, and then hold everybody else responsible to that standard, to that process. That's what I found personally that seems to work the best. Starting with the GM. Yeah.
Something I've noticed in today's time, and I'm not, these times present different challenges than they did 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And talking to a lot of different regionals and a lot of different people in the business, there's a lot of friction when it comes to collections. It's just part of what we do. We have to have those tough conversations. But unfortunately, we're almost like in a frictionless time where people don't want to have those aggressive conversations, or those straightforward
Right.
conversations. They're a little bit difficult to have, right? You
Right.
it's another thing to come in and teach you how to make these calls or whatever the case is, but now you come across somebody who's dealing with a difficult situation in their life. They feel like they've invested enough money into their product. They're not interested in closing it. Now we've got to have some tough conversations. How are you addressing that? I noticed that a lot of our new hires, a lot of our younger generation, they're not so much for those complicated, difficult, straightforward conversations. How do
Mhm.
you train for that? How do you get them around that?
Um, there's a way, when if you get them to understand that we provide a service for our customers. We do make their lives easier. We provide them with products that they wouldn't normally be able to acquire outside of our industry, right?
Right.
Um, we offer service, everything. So we provide them with the service. And when they're upset or something happens to where the customer is hard to deal with, if we get them to understand, listen, we're here for them. We're trying to help them. We want to make things easier for them. We want to keep providing them with that service. Um, it's easier to to diffuse a situation when you help them to understand that you're with them. You're trying to help them. You have options to make it easier for them. Not It's not, hey, you need to do what I've already asked you to do, and or else it's not something that you can't um, get caught up where the customer is going to be angry, but you have to get them to understand that you're trying to help them, and it's easier to diffuse a situation once they understand that you have options to help them and to make it easier for them. It pretty much always works out in the right direction. They can bring down their barriers. They're willing to listen, and they're willing to they're not going to argue as much. They're not going to be so upset. It's easier to connect with the customer when they know that you're here to help them. You're not trying to you're not a bill collector just trying to make it harder on them. You're actually trying
You
to
got
you have a
yeah,
relationship with them. You're trying to give them options to make their life easier.
you got to bring that genuine approach.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
absolutely. I mean, and you have to believe it. I mean, you can't just put on a fake smile. I mean, you really have to understand that, these customers, they have a hard time in life. A lot of them do. They've got, bill collectors calling them, as far as they're concerned, we're just another bill collector. And once they understand that we're not a bill collector, we're actually trying to help them, get through their difficult financial situation. It's easier for them to look at you as, as a partner rather than just a bill collector that's just, another one on their list that's been calling them all week long. It really does help them to it opens up the communication lines where they're more willing to talk to you. They're more willing to return phone calls. They're more willing to let what is going on exactly in their life and not make up excuses so that you can have options to help them. But it's definitely just getting them to understand that you want to help them. You are going to help them. And that you're not just another bill collector. You have a relationship with them, and you want to keep that relationship with them. That tends to help a lot.
so recently, and even in the past, some podcasts that I've had and some coming up in the future, we've had an automated collections platform that has come about.
Right.
And in the last year, even at RTO World 2023, came out in the RTO 2 paid automated collections platform, because I believe that there was a drive towards automation and to help clear some of those difficult conversations that some people just really don't like having. But you've been able to collect and be able to do this on a human element without AI, without a lot of extras. In your opinion, do you think that it's possible to really go to a platform like that and to be successful? Are you hopeful for that? Or how do you feel about
Yeah.
that?
You know, I don't think it's the best option. It might be the easier solution for in theory, but you lose that one-on-one relationship with the customer. You know, it, I feel like it's important to to have an ongoing relationship with them, to where you're working with them through their hardships. And if it's just automated or anything like that, it really takes away a lot of your what we're in business for, is to build relationships, build our business through that. And I feel like that would hinder that automation.
I
It would take out the personal relationship away.
I was thinking about that because I'm from an older generation of rent to own, maybe not as old as others that have started this and been in this a lot longer than I have. But that human element, that relationship element that we usually build with our customers won't be there. But then there's also the flip side of the coin where they're like, when you want something, you pull out your phone, right? When you want a pizza, you pull out your
Right.
phone. You want
Right.
groceries now, you pull out your phone. Almost now, everything on Amazon, you have all these different capabilities to do that. So why not rent to own? And I think the biggest difference is I just don't have a relationship with the pizza guy. I don't have a relationship with the Amazon delivery guy because it's not only is it just a retail situation, but once I pay for it, they're here and they're gone. And if they
Right.
had a different Amazon driver or a different pizza driver, or if somebody at, Alibaba was different, I wouldn't know. But then I would know if I had some different phone calls coming from the place that I see weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. So I guess the bigger question is, can we be out collected by AI? Is that do you think that are we facing the John Henry story where we're like trying to cut down the
Yeah.
trees and somebody's got a chainsaw, or is it something that we can come out of because we're building relationships? Because I mean, another thing too is like when you come across these hostile situations, I think that yes, it's difficult, but at the same time, if we come out on the other side of that, we can actually be better for it in the relationship to our customers and the relationship they have with our organizations, let's say Buddies or Aaron's or Rack or wherever. They're better for it because we were able to come out the other side and say, hey, we understand that there's a disagreement. Let's talk about it
Right.
versus not. But then, you have those mass texts, those mass availability where somebody can just pay over a card. I'm wondering if the hybrid system is really gonna take off.
Yeah.
If it's really gonna make a difference. And I guess like if I'm hiring somebody, right, I want somebody that can have those conversations. Like, for instance, when you're doing hiring and you're bringing somebody in, we're not talking about an automated collections platform. We're talking about somebody that's going to make these phone calls and be friendly, especially because you're in the state of Oklahoma. That's a very friendly state, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Like, what do you look for in those new hires and those people? Is there something about their past or something about their traits that they have that you think would make them good in a collections position?
That's a good question. Eh, Really, honestly, I think that the what we do in accounts or the collection part of the business, that can all be learned. It's just a process. It's just following processes. The main thing that I like to look at is, are they able to communicate? Are they able to connect with people? Um, you know, are they able to have a conversation with customers on a personal level to where they're looked at as friendly, not as a transaction, not treating the customer as a transaction, because anybody can call a customer and just let them know what they owe and work out a payment. But it's the whole calling, asking how they're doing, just having just a normal conversation with them. And if I can find someone in an interview that you know shows that kind of um, skills to where they're able to just communicate and just uh, make a connection with people, then anything else you can teach them. It's not, we can teach them all the processes. That's not the problem. It's really hard to find someone that can make a connection with customers to get them to build relationships to where that customer calls them when they have an issue. That customer will contact them when they can't make their payment, rather than avoid us. Things like that. So yeah, it's basically just the ability to have a connection with people, and not real shy, but kind of outgoing a little bit. Um, as far as the background and experience, I don't think it matters. I think everything we do, we can teach. We can show them. It's not a problem.
So we're hiring the people, not the skills, right?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. You said it perfect. Hire the person, teach them the skill.
So the way you describe it, because and generally in this channel, we always say this, and I've said it since the beginning, there's usually one or the other, right? Whether you're 51% and 49%, it's usually your sales or credit. And one of the reasons I want to bring you on, because I know that you're a credit guy and I know that you can do sales. That's part of our job. That's what we do. But like,
Right.
as you're describing what you would think is a perfect person to come on, or somebody that would be better at collections than others, I'm going to be honest with you, man. It doesn't sound that different than what I would hire for a salesperson, right? You can't necessarily bring
Right.
somebody in and say, you're a salesperson innately, but I can teach that. What I can't teach is the interpersonal skills. Do you really think that there's a difference when you're hiring between somebody for collections and sales? Because it sounds like they're both the same, but you're collection driven. Do you believe that that person looks different inside that interview room, or is it the same person and we're just training them the skills?
I think it's more or less the same person, just someone to make connection with customers, be friendly, be talkative, just that personal approach. But with the sales thing, you have to have some kind of ability to hustle. That in sales you have to show some kind of track record or history of being able to hustle and get things done. In credit, it's all about communication. But it is a lot of the same personality traits. But with sales, there's more active, needing to get things done, and the ability to, some kind of history to where they show that they have a track record of hustling, basically.
In your opinion, you're sitting there in an interview, what is the one thing that you're looking for? Like the top notch, top on the list. What is something that you're going to say, this trait is the one thing that I'm for sure looking for? Let's say I've got a collections person that's coming through the door. I want to make sure that guy or that gal has this.
If they have the ability to make me laugh, believe it or not, just somehow just enjoy being around them, I think they would be great, because that to me, it diffuses a lot of the issues we have, with customers being upset, being frustrated. If they have that ability to make a connection with them and make them, joke around with them, make them laugh, just make them feel comfortable, I think that goes a long way with accounts. And so, when I'm interviewing someone, if they can do that with me, I'm like, man, this person, they're definitely, they're gold. You give them a chance. It's just being able to make people feel at ease. That's a big trait. That's something that I look for.
I'm going to tell you right now, I didn't see that coming. I'm glad that's some words of wisdom. Recently, talking about words of wisdom, I know that you were on a conference call with some of the other regionals and some of the big wigs as far as how are you getting it done, which was almost like the starting catalyst of why I wanted to get you on the show. They wanted to pick your brain. Well, I mean, what was that like? What was that like being on a conference call with everybody kind of like focusing in on you and going, hey, man, what do you got to say?
Well, I mean, it was fun. It was something new. But that whole conference was about processes. What we do. What are we doing that is different than everyone else to get customers to respond? Because the issue across the board was, they spend a lot of time calling customers, or they make field visits to their home to try to make contact and no one answers the door. So that was the main issue across the board, just the lack of getting customers to respond. And, what we shared was, different tactics, I guess, that we use to get the customer to respond, because that's basically what it's about, being able to get the customer to communicate. Because if they communicate with you, then you can work out all the other options. It's when they ignore you, that makes your job harder, because you have to call them every day. You have to go out to their home. You have to do all the things that we don't like to do. So it was basically that conference was about different tactics and processes to get customers to respond, to where you wouldn't have to invest so much time in accounts, chasing after people. You actually have them coming to you instead of you having to chase after them.
All right,
that
James,
was the main thing.
It's golden nugget time. What do you got? What's one tactic that James uses that it can be a universal savior for some of our listeners out there?
Honestly, it's really not anything groundbreaking. It's just, like I said, when you finally make contact with that customer that you've been trying to get in touch with, whether it's them on the phone or they come in the store to make a payment, to make their payment, before you make that transaction, and after you speak with them a little bit, you need to address that whole lack of communication. That, to me, you have to bring that up. You have to have that uncomfortable conversation with them, like, hey, Pete, I've been calling you for the last 6 days and I can't get you to return my call. Is this your right phone number? Is something going on to where you're not able to call me sometime in the last 6 days, because I have to have communication with you? Usually they'll respond with, well, I've been busy, or, whatever the excuse is. you basically, you got to take away the excuse and say, well, listen, we're here from 9 in the morning till 6 at night, 6 days a week. At some point you can call me on your lunch break or something, at some point in the day. And we just let them know, I have options to help you, but if you can't communicate with me, I don't have any options. I can't help you. And that was one thing as far as that, just addressing the lack of communication. But it was also when you leave messages, if you have a customer that is what I call a habitually late customer, someone that, they pay you, but they don't pay you on a set day. They pay you kind of different sporadically, but they're usually late all the time. And, it's just different messages. You can leave a message, just saying, hey, I need you to please give me a call. We have a scheduled return for your washer and dryer today. Something simple like that. Usually that gets them to say, well, why are they trying to pick up my washer and dryer? It's only 5 days past due. Well, when they call you and saying, hey, I'm going to be in on Friday to make this payment, that's your option, or that's your opportunity to tell them, well, hey, that's no big deal. I'll take care of it. I'll take you off the return schedule. But if you don't communicate with me, it gets automatically generated to a return schedule. So please, you have to call me. You have to return my call. If you can't make it in, you need to call me. It's just basically emphasizing the communication. That was the main thing, but also it was making sure you put notes on the customer's account, everything that you're doing, so that whoever answers the phone, whoever is taking their payment, can see what the communication, what you're asking. Like, customer needs to do an update. All the phone numbers are disconnected, or customer needs to update their card on file, or please counsel the customer about not returning phone calls. Whatever it is, you have to put those notes in there, because someone needs to have that conversation with them. You can't just have them ignore you, for a week or even 2 weeks, come in, make their payment, and leave, and then turn around and do it all over again. You have to have that conversation to address it. That was mainly what that whole conference was about, just different tactics on that.
So we're talking about bringing people in and the traits that you look at versus the skills. You're getting the buy-in from the GM. You're getting the guys to understand what you do and why you do it and what the point is behind it. When do we start diving into the brass tacks of it? When do we start going into why revenues the revenue percent collected is really important, or diving into the payment history and saying, okay, Bob, let's take a look at the payment history, and we're going to take a good look at this and say, it just seems like they keep paying every 15th, but you have them due, on this particular date, not on the right date, or biweekly or weekly, or there's something going on, or maybe the account is overloaded. When do you really start diving in and dissecting those kind of things?
On the percent collected?
Right.
It's, that's more of, obviously having the customer set up on the right due date, but, explaining to your staff in the stores, your GM and all them, let them understand that, we pay depreciation on everything that's on rent, right? So, anything that is in a customer's home that's on rent, we make a payment each month in depreciation. So if the customer is not paying you on time, or paying you a certain amount within a monthly period, then you're paying for them to keep it and not pay you. Which, if you break it down into just basic, like, listen, you're paying for them to have this item that they're not paying you for. You're providing a service, you're paying a fee for them to keep it. You have to be able to collect on that. But, as far as having the customer set up on the right due date, the payments that they make, if they're set up on the 15th of the month and they pay you 2 weeks late, well, chances are you didn't collect anything for that month, right? That whole month has gone by and they haven't paid you since the 15th of the month before, and they're paying you again at the beginning of the next month. So you just went a whole month with zero collected on that account. So, that's something that they need to be aware of. If they have someone that is set up monthly, or semi-monthly, and they miss a payment, it's more crucial that they handle that customer to pay on time, because they don't have the ability to catch up right away like a weekly customer does. So your percent collected is obviously going to be affected if you can't get that customer to make the full payment and not the partial payment, when they're due, anything other than weekly. But as far as the percent collected, it's just full payments. We don't do partial payments unless it's an extreme situation. It's the full payment, and we really follow through with emphasizing and focusing on, if we're going to help a customer, there has to be a time within the next week or so that they're completely caught up. It's not carrying a partial payment every single payment. They have to get caught up, because percent collected, what we collect each month is what pays the bills, right? It affords inventory, it affords salaries, and it's what makes our business go. And you gotta be able to communicate with the customer that that's important, to pay us, for our services that we provide on time, so that we get that full payment.
I'm gonna tell you right now, I think partial payments are killing us right now. I think we're in a time of partial payments, especially when you start going into a time where there might be a little bit more money out there than there usually is, and then those funds are like, I will kind of push this along, and I'll kick the can down the road as long as I can until I get that payment. And so you have those months where
Right.
you're suffering because people are like, I'm going to get it, and then I think we have some collections people that don't understand how difficult it is to run a business that way when you're running your percent collected down, or you're not taking those full payments, and it really starts beating on you. But then there's the other side of the coin, right? The customer side of it. And they're looking at us like, you guys are killing me, right? They're calling me all the time. I really don't have all
Right.
the money. And I think that's where it goes back to the sales, and we go, well, we shouldn't, we maybe should look at ourselves and say we maybe should have not overloaded that situation, or we should have looked at it a little bit better. But I think that's where the preconceived notions of rent to own come in, because I love this business. I mean, you're in
Right.
this business. There's a lot of great people I know that are in this business. A couple of my mentors are in this business, a couple that aren't, but they know what I do and they know how I feel about it. But what do you come across as somebody who's really invested in collections? What are some of the misconceptions? What are some of the things that you hear out there that you're like, wait a minute, whoa, that's not even close to what's going on?
Misconceptions on collections.
Yeah.
Um, I think that they think that we beat customers up, that we overcharge them, and all we care about is money, or if they don't pay us, we're going to repossess our product. All those, that is not even close to the truth. We know that. I mean, we're always trying to help the customer keep the items, to own the items. All we're trying to do is just get them to make us more of a priority, to pay us on time. That's all. When they have certain situations that arise from time to time, we're there to help them. If they miss work because they were sick, we're going to help them. If their car breaks down and they can't make their payment, we're there to help them. But anytime other than that, they need to make us a priority, right? So the misconception is that we don't care. All we care about is money, and if they don't pay us, we pick it up. That's I think that is not the right idea of the collections department. The collections department is to help people keep their items, to build relationships with them, but at the same time, we still do need to hold them accountable to the agreement that they made with us, and for the services that we provide. But we're not a repo company. We're not trying to return everything that someone can't pay for. That's a huge misconception.
But I always hear, and I've heard it for years. I've heard it since the first year of here, and I've been here 19 years, and I hear it. You guys wait till the last two payments, and then you
Right.
come pick it up, and it's like, I would rather not. I don't even know how to emphasize that anymore. I'd rather not get it, and it just seems like as the world goes round, it's usually in those last few payments when you've had something for a little while that they start getting the toughest. And it's like, I really want you to keep it. Like, I really, really want you to keep it. There is no benefit for me closing out this relationship by picking up something that you've invested long hard time and money into, and including ourselves, right? Because we have to open that relationship, and then we have to sustain it with being there, having somebody to call when you have a service issue, or somebody to call when you have a credit issue, or anything in between. We have to keep a store open, and we have to manage it through all this time frame, and closing the relationship that we have with you at that last critical moment is probably the last thing that we want to do.
Yeah, it's not good.
And I don't know, we're going to have to start putting that. We don't want it on the last payment. We're going to start putting that on our receipts. But James, it's been great to have you on. Listen, anything that you want to cover before we call it a day? Any great words of advice or words of wisdom that you have from a collection standpoint?
Man, the only thing I can think of, honestly, is just, you got to get everybody on the same page, everybody to work together, and make communication with the customer the number one priority, above even taking their payment. I know that sounds crazy, but if you can establish a customer that communicates with you and keeps the line of communication open, it will make lives a lot easier at work, less stress. It really changes the dynamics of what we do day to day if you have customers calling you rather than you having to chase after them. So just make the communication with the customer the number one priority, and making them understand that, and keep that line of communication open with them.
Well, we're going to take those words of wisdom with us. We're going to talk to the GM first and make sure they got their buy-in. And we're going to talk to the sales team and let them know there's got to be good reason why you're doing what you're doing. I'm going to sit down with the training staff as far as the collections go and make sure that they understand what they're doing and how they're doing. But number one, open up that line of communication with some clear dialogue and let them know we are here to help. We are not here to just, like you said, we're not a repo place. We don't want to pick it up, but we do have to have open lines of communications, making sure that when you bring people on, they make you laugh, right, James? People that make you laugh.
There you go.
Because you're hiring the people and not the skills. Don't let those preconceived notions about what collections is already going through really get to you, and let them know we're here to build those relationships and we're here for you. Listen, James, I'm really glad that you're on the show. Everybody, I appreciate you listening and watching. And if you have any questions for James, hit us up on the show, Pete at the RTO Show podcast.com, or you can go online to the website at www.thertoshowpodcast.com. Come and see us. You can find us on social media, send us some DMs, or just click a like and follow us anywhere you can. James, once again, we do appreciate your time. And I'll tell you guys, as always, keep your collections low to get your sales high. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete.